Welcome to the Powercat Podcast, presented by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Now let's go to the rolling Flint Hills, home of the Cats and Dogs Studio. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the Powercat Podcast. Fitz and Gills and Zach. Although Zach, you can hardly see Zach because we're missing lights in here. We had a computer crash. Gills just went blurry.
Oh.
Gills, what happened to you?
What's
There
wrong
you're back.
with me?
You went really blurry, and as soon as you opened up your eyes, it like, oh, there he is.
It's magic.
I know. These cameras are kind of funny. We're hoping you're having a good week. I know K-State basketball is having a happy day today as we record this. We're sponsored by The Fridge. If you want to celebrate things like getting a new Dug, go to The Fridge and buy some fun stuff. All your party needs right there at The Fridge. And they got experts in wine and beer and whiskey and bourbon, all that stuff. I don't know if they have a tequila expert. They should. Gills, you could be that. You work at a tequila-like place.
I do.
I don't know. Anyhow, this is the podcast that our VIPs at Go Powercat get to ask the questions, and then we answer it here on this podcast for all to see. And it looks like my camera is having issues now with my shirt. I don't know if that's showing up for everyone. And Gills went blurry again. We're off to a good start. Let's get to your questions at Wabash Station. This may not be much to look at. Well, with me on it, it's not, but we're going to do it anyhow. Zach Carlson.
Just
take it away.
Just my name. Okay.
There you go.
First question from Call Me T22. Talk about Doug, Dougie, Doug.
Dougie. My favorite character on Up is the dog named Doug.
D-U-G.
So this is a meaningful commitment for me. This is a big time pickup. They wanted a veteran guard that can score, and they went and found one. You know, we still don't know the situation with Quez Glover, but if he's going to be healthy and coming back, I think they're done at that position, but they're going to be looking for some other guys. Ryan Gilbert, give me your thoughts since you're our basketball guy.
Yeah. I don't know if they'll be necessarily done though, even if Glover is back, because they've got still 4 open scholarship spots right here today as we sit. So, I mean, if there's a guard out there that you want on your team that you can do something with, by all means, bring them in and let him compete. But yeah, this is exciting. Dug McDaniel, is exciting to have him committing, and now he's officially signed with Kansas State as of Wednesday afternoon. And so, the cliches and all that stuff get thrown around with, oh, this is a big time pickup. And not that Tyler Perry wasn't big or Arthur Kluma wasn't big at the time of their commitments from the transfer portal. But, Dug McDaniel's legit. This is a guy that can play meaningful minutes on a championship caliber team. I have no doubt in my mind saying that. As far as like a true breakdown in terms of his game, I'll maybe save that for the VIP subscribers that Go Powercat, and I'll have something up probably by the time that you're watching this podcast or listening to this podcast. But it's big time, man. And we'll see where they go with the rest of the portal. Jerome Colbert departed just the other day. So K-State does not have a center on its roster. Gasson and Michaela Britch are the 2 quote unquote bigs for this team, but you've got a lot of work to do down low in the paint. And it's telling when you see a guy like Jerome Colbert, who started the last 10, 12 games of the year, go out and hit the portal when there's literally nobody officially on the roster that's going to, take his minutes. And so, this staff's going to go heavy on these bigs in the portal. I don't think that Terrace Reed's much in the picture anymore for Michigan. I know that he visited just before Dug McDaniel, but this is probably the opposite of a package deal. I don't think you want to bring in 2 players that are from a program that won 8 games, and that's not a knock on Michigan or anything like that, or not a knock on these players, but I don't know if these 2 even want to play together again. And that's not, I don't know. There's no bad blood there, but probably just best to move on, find some more new teammates. And so we'll see where they go from here. And to back up that point, Nigel Pack was gone. The rest of K-State's roster was gone besides Marquise Noel and Nish Masood from a Big 12 team that didn't make the NCAA tournament. So I think Terrace Reed's out of the picture now. But back to McDaniel now, the Michigan player that the staff does get. We talked about it, guys. We talked about this staff needing to be aggressive, be assertive early on here in this transfer portal cycle. The dead period begins on Thursday, I believe, and so it was I don't want to say it was now or never, because you could have gotten McDaniel or any of these guys later on. But I mean, you're not playing in the NCAA tournament. Use this time to go out and get your guys that you want. Now you still got some open spots, absolutely, but he's a guy that's going to come in and he's going to compete for a starting spot without a doubt. I'm not going to say he is the bona fide point guard or the bona fide two. I think he can play both. I think he's probably best suited to play point guard, but you've got guys like Day Ames, RJ Jones, David Castillo, who can do a lot of the 1 and the 2 stuff for this team. So I can tell you this, so this, McDaniel's probably not going to be promised anything. Go prove it in practice every day. If you're a guy like Jones or Ames or any of those other guys that you're going to see somebody come in, okay, you got to embrace that. You want to make his job as miserable as you can. Say, hey, I don't want you to be a starter on this team. I'm earning the starting spot, right? So those minutes are there, and you can't get discouraged by people coming in from the portal. But it's exciting, man. It really is. And again, I don't want to knock Tyler Perry or Kaluma, any of the portal guys K-State's gotten in the past, but this truly is a big-time player for this team.
Yeah. With no bigs, I would look for them to go at least 3, if not all 4 in that area. I just don't, a couple posts, couple forwards, maybe another swing
We do got
guy.
Taj Manning is still here, so I shouldn't
that's right.
blow over
right.
that. But
so
I don't know how much of a significant role he'll have.
Yeah, I was shocked by Jerome Colbert's departure, and maybe it was all related to recruitment of the other big man from Michigan. But kid, did you think you were going to be the only big man on this team? You're never going to find that. There's always going to be 2. I mean, there's such things as getting tired and foul trouble. So I'm not quite understood why he departed, but maybe he realized they're going to just absolutely recruit over the top of me, and when they're done, I'll be the 3rd center. So I think they recognize they've got to up the talent. There's no doubt about that. And from what I'm told, they'll have plenty of resources to go get the guys they want. And we'll see if they do that.
Next question's from
hang on here. Hang on. So,
no.
With Colbert, is there more about?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm so sorry. Cutting out a little bit. Okay, I'm so sorry. My internet. I got the Ethernet plugged in, and I'm so sorry. But if you can hear me now, with Colbert, okay, if you want to go out and play somewhere else, that's fine. I get it. If you just want to play and you want to be a starter no matter where you're at, because I don't think, Tang sure as heck was not guaranteeing Colbert a starting spot on this team, but I'm sure he could compete for it, right? We don't know what goes on behind closed doors and within those meetings with Colbert and the staff, but you have to assume that Colbert was going to get a chance, right? So that's where I'm just puzzled with his departure. I know that's not where this question was directed, but same thing with Cam Carter. You were a starter. Both of these guys were starters on Big 12 teams. To see them go, the grass is not always going to be greener.
Okay, now we can go. Yes.
Okay. Now from Kevin 316, assuming Jerome Tang is recruiting players to fit the 5-out offense, how does Dug McDaniel fit in with the other guards?
I'll let you go, Ryan.
Well, I don't want to compare him or even put this on him to be like Marquise Noel in terms of his vision, but he can definitely help out. He can help out this offense just with his facilitating, right? Now he can score, he can get to the rim, he can do all that stuff. But Kansas State last year turned the ball over at an alarming rate, the worst among any Power 6 team in college basketball. That's because they didn't have ball handlers on their team, right? That is not a knock on Tyler Perry. That's not a knock on Cam Carter, but these guys were doing things that they shouldn't be doing, right? But when you don't have a true natural point guard, you're going to turn the ball over when you have the ball in those guys' hands. So it's not a knock on them, but that's just how it is when you don't have a true point guard. So I'm not saying that McDaniel is a true point guard, but he's going to help out this offense just in terms of facilitating the ball, limiting the turnovers, having a high assist to turnover ratio, stuff like that. And so that's where I think it's going to help the most. As far as where does he fit in, I kind of touched on it earlier. He could play, I would, the 1 or the 2. I'd probably lean on him playing the 1. I would say he's a little further away from David Castillo. Now, I'm not saying Castillo is going to come in and start or anything like that, but I would say Castillo, I would label him more as a 2, and I would say McDaniels is more as the 1. I think RJ's probably shifting towards the 2 spot and being more of a scorer, going out and doing some more things next season. And then Ames shifting towards that 1 spot. That makes sense, which comes as no surprise because he was towards the latter half of that last season, he was letting Tyler Perry play off the ball a little bit more and running the point guard position for this offense. So I think that, just in terms of those 4 players, we'll see if they get anybody else. But, you guys, you look at the rest of the roster that's there, Arthur Kaluma is a big guy. Gasson, if he comes back, I guess I shouldn't be blown by Quez Glover. Again, I think he can play the 1 or the 2. We'll see if he can stay healthy, knock on wood. But he owes it to the staff to stay and buy in and do his best. Obviously, we haven't seen an announcement from Gasson or Glover, but with the guards, I think he's good. He's got, like I said, he's got a good chance to start. He'll have to earn it, though.
And we haven't seen anything from Kaluma, have we?
Have not. Sounding like a little bit more and more that he's going to stay, but we'll see. But NBA is certainly an option for him.
I wonder if McDaniel was a important factor for Kaluma making his decision. Have a player of that type to join the team.
Yeah. If you want to improve your draft stock, you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? So if you got some dudes coming in, all right, this can make me look better.
Yep, agreed. It'll be interesting to see. I'm hopeful he stays, but I hope we also see more consistency from him.
Moving on to Ohio Powercat. How is NIL split between recruiting new basketball players and keeping current players?
I have no idea. Look, we're not privy to these numbers. We have no idea unless the player unveils it, how much these guys are making, but it is all part of the, salary structure. I'm just going to call it that. The coaches have to decide, is this guy on my roster worth this? What am I going to pay this? It's crazy what coaches have to do now. They basically have a self-imposed salary cap. There's some programs that have just run out of NIL money, maybe a football program, and they just can't attract anyone worth adding to their roster. So the head coaches now are managing their salaries, their cap. It's crazy what they're going through. And it's got to be a lot easier for a basketball coach with only 13 guys and divvying it up that way. And, you don't have to measure the value of a 4 against a point, or like in football where you got an offensive lineman versus a skill guy. I don't know what the markets are. So, sometimes you might see a departure or a guy said, hey, I've been here and I want some more money. And they say, no, you're playing at the level we think you're worth. And that might lead them to leave. I don't know if that's what happened in any of these cases, but that might well be it. Let's say theoretically, Jerome Colbert's getting a number and they're looking at post players and they're talking to those guys about twice that number. Well, you'd be pretty upset if you're Colbert. But if that's all they want to pay, then you hit the portal and go somewhere else. I'm not sure that's what happened, but yeah, every coach I've talked to has been the same way. This is just such a mess trying to manage salaries essentially.
Gills, anything?
Nope.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know that Fitz would know more about the NIL than me.
We don't. We're not, and we're just not privy to that.
Right.
Curry Sexton isn't going to ethically be leaking any of that information.
I think you make a good point. It's about managing the budget of what you have. And look, for a guy like Jerome Colbert, you look at what value he had this last season to the team. Yeah, he played a decent amount, but how much is he worth in the grand scheme of things for K-State? And, how much is he worth in the free market? I would argue that he was probably in a better spot with whatever K-State was going to give him. He might land somewhere mid-major, somewhere.
He's going to be surprised, I think.
I think that at least with him, and there's probably some other players, I think Cam Carter probably overshot his value landing in the SEC at LSU, but also that's in his backyard. LSU's not the greatest of programs. He's going to play in an empty arena. It is what it is. There's certain programs like that, but man, a lot of these guys are going to go into the portal and they're not going to land somewhere, or they're going to land somewhere where they didn't think that was what their value was. And if they want to play basketball, they might be doing it for free next year.
I know.
At Long Beach State or wherever.
There are so many kids miscalculating with this whole situation. I'm going to go in the portal and find more money. It's not there. And then you end up, losing money, playing somewhere lesser. That is more common than the kids that go into the portal and find a big payday.
Next question. Last question of the first half from BJ AGW 1971. I don't think I've said that before. Welcome. Has K-State Athletics said anything about the department donations falling with NIL now soliciting money?
No, because I think they've come to realize, even though it's two separate entities, it's the same entity. I do. You know what? I need to ask Gene Taylor about that, how they're handling that, because I pitched an idea this week. It came from our friend Powercat Ryan, who's on Twitter. He's also on our site, to convert the cat backer clubs to the NIL backers, but that would take money away from the Hearn scholarship. So maybe they wanted to start up their own NIL tour, and go to big places and where they know they can raise money. But people wondered why Gene Taylor and other ADs were hesitant, because it literally is competing for the same dollars. And he just needed to see how it was working to understand, well, if I don't, help promote this NIL thing, then nobody's going to have good players and the teams are going to stink. And then our scholarship fund will be in trouble. So I think they're just trying to find their way in the modern era, because it's all new to them too.
I think the NIL thing between department donations and NIL, I think you can differentiate them at price point. If I'm going to donate to the athletic department, I'm the type of donor that's probably got thousands of dollars to donate annually.
Right.
Those types of people, you don't necessarily want donating to NIL, because those are going to be your foundation for whatever you need for the future. But I feel like at least the way they're marketing it with these memberships, and hey, if we get to this number, it unlocks another 250,000. I don't know what the membership cost is. I unfortunately haven't looked in, deeply into what that means. But the things like Dara's, what they did with the 3 cents per gallon going to NIL for the last month, it's stuff like that where the sense of the fan base can feel like they're contributing to the product on the field a little bit, that may not be the type of people to say, hey, I'm going to donate $1,000 or $2,000 to the department. I think that you kind of create, at least with NIL and the way I see it, at least in that instance, you can get some people at different price points that, you're still helping your university, you're still supporting the athletic department, but it may be in a different way than what is traditional.
I think if they experimented this summer with an event like in Dallas, and took a few players down there, and the admission, I wish we knew, since we can't be members of these things as, members of the media. Let's say it's $100, to join. I don't have any idea. Charge admission at least that much, and with admission comes a membership. You become part of it. So maybe you want to double it. But if they have Avery Johnson coming in to speak to a group in Dallas, I would imagine a lot of boosters will pay $200 a ticket to come see that, even if it's maybe on video streaming, where Avery and other people are back there. It's technology now can connect these things so easily. You can have a few representatives there, and then they run all the technology and everything. You can do so much with limited travel, but I think reaching out into the public, instead of asking the public to come to you, I think maybe going to them and getting signups that way might be really beneficial to the NIL. Oh, that's it. That's it for the first half of the Powercat podcast. A lot of NIL stuff. I don't think I've said I don't know this often on a podcast in my life, because we're just not privy to all the inner workings of the NIL. I should talk with Curry and find out a little bit more, find out everything I can, but I just haven't done that. We'll be right back after this break, and as soon as I find my way here without my mouse working, it's just a mess. We'll be right back on the Powercat Podcast.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Please visit The Fridge Wholesale Liquor, located at the corner of Claflin and Westport Road in Manhattan, Kansas.
Welcome back to the show. Let's return to the Cats and Dogs studio.
Welcome back to the Powercat Podcast. Tim Fitzgerald, Zach Carlson, Ryan Gilbert, your usual crew. Zach, once again, has been shoplifting and avoiding the security cameras with that hat. Very effective.
My Prairie Dunes hat, and I stole a bunch of stuff.
Yep.
Very identifiable.
They'll be questioning everyone at Prairie Dunes about the crimes. Gills keeps going blurry. His internet has decided to be half-assed today.
I think Zach probably stole my internet connection. That's why he's hiding.
Oh, because it went bad as soon as
Yeah.
we signed him on. Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, that's exactly how the internet works.
That's how it works.
Yep. This is the Powercat Podcast. We're sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Make sure you stop into the Fridge at the corner of this and that in the town in which we live. Great people, great prices. Experts in anything you might want to ask. So get into the Fridge. They're great with helping plan big events. On to more of your questions from Wabash Station. Zach, take it away.
From Ohio Powercat, are any ruin to football? Are there any freshmen or other newcomers standing out during spring practice?
Have they mentioned freshmen, true freshmen? I don't think they have.
I don't think so.
So,
I mean, Blake Barnett's in a boot.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's the one
That's
you're
the
most
guy.
interested in. The quarterback's hobbling around. Running back, well, God Lord, I'm so bad with name. Rice, is that his name? Is buried on the depth chart. They're so early in their progression. I wouldn't expect to hear anything about true freshmen. I mean, they're like the coaches say, they're drinking from a fire hose right now. It's hard to play well when you're constantly thinking if you're doing the right thing.
I think Dante Cephas look good.
Yeah, I mean, even a player like Dante Cephas, who comes in with a little bit more experience, is kind of been finding his way, but they just love his athleticism. They think they really found a piece at receiver, and of course, he played for Coach Middleton at their previous stop. So he went to Penn State. That didn't work out. Now he's here. So no, there's no young guys to really report on. But if you want redshirt freshmen, they've listed almost everyone. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Last year's class has just been incredible for this program. And Joe Klanderman talked about it at Wednesday's press conference, how they had 3 defensive ends in that class, and all will be serious players at this level. They hit the jackpot, is what he said.
Next question's from I Like Pickles Cat. What positions does K-State football target in the spring window?
I kind of asked about that today on the defensive side. They have 7 openings. I don't know, again, getting back to the NIL structure and how much money they have, if they will fill all of that. But they certainly, on the defensive side, are looking for a nose tackle. And they don't just want a nose tackle. They want someone who's going to come in and boost the position. Because they really want Banks to move out to the defensive end spot. They want to be able to go bigger, in certain run situations at those spots. So, they need another depth piece because Uso's been out most of the spring. He's getting ramped back up. And that pretty much leaves Damian Lalio with the experience there. And that's not much experience. But, that for sure. They, on the offense side, they might look for a running back because I don't think their depth is what they thought it would be. Joe Jackson's running 2. He's very promising, but, he's a redshirt freshman. And then you get into some walk-ons. So I think a running back might be on their wish list too, and we'll see where else they go. But I don't think they're going to have 7 signees. And Joe Klanderman felt good about retaining players off this roster. My question was, hey, look, you just mentioned a lot of depth. Do some of these depth pieces decide they're good enough to start somewhere and hop in the portal when it opens? And he said, hopefully their culture will keep that at bay, and we'll see if it does.
Yeah, I think it kind of matters on what players do enter the portal during the spring window, on what K-State will try, obviously to replace them. But I don't see any huge splashes. I don't think there's going to be any guys that enter necessarily from other programs into the portal that K-State's going to look at and say, we got to have him. Superstar type guys. I don't know if K-State's going to want them, nor do I think that K-State's going to try to land them, even if they'd help. I think you're going to see maybe a couple depth type pieces, like your Eric Munoz's of the world, maybe somebody in practice, maybe a veteran presence for the locker room that's, played on a couple of teams, wants to get a 3rd degree or something, just guys like that you may not hear from in the fall, but they're around the team. I'd expect something like that. Maybe an offensive lineman, someone with a little bit of experience,
Maybe they
linebacker.
Maybe they actually add some younger guys, take some chances on some of those guys because their depth is finally catching up. They're finally, we're going through the positions today talking to Joe Clanderman, and I'm like, defensive end, they got more than a 3 deep. They have that many pieces at defensive end. A linebacker, because of all the injuries last year, now they've got a lot of experience and different guys coming back. Safety, they're absolutely loaded. They could go 5 safeties. It's incredible. And, maybe corner is a spot, but, he also raved about Kanaji Thomas today that, he's going to be a big time player for him. So I don't know. Maybe they'll just rest on this and save scholarships for the next recruiting class and go get, I know they want a nose guard. They'll probably get a running back. I don't know. But, I think they're going to get 2 or 3 players, and then plus anything they lose, they might have to replace.
Yeah. Maybe another wide receiver. I feel pretty good there, though. I mean,
for the first time in a long, long time, I feel pretty good about the receivers.
It's weird.
That is if the guys keep progressing. Keegan Johnson gets better. Jackson gets better. Those guys.
Trace Spivey.
Kind of felt the same way last year, though, and we know how that worked out. They weren't terrible, but they weren't great.
Well, a lot of that was Keegan Johnson couldn't get healthy.
Yeah, true.
And then he's, by the time he did get healthy, he was playing like a guy hadn't really played with this group. And so it was an odd adjustment. He finally broke loose against Texas.
Next question is from Don't Touch My Willie.
That's just good philosophy.
Do you think multiple 500-yard receiving tight ends are possible in the Connor Riley and Matt Wells offense?
Well, since I haven't seen that offense, it's hard to answer that. But I know that this offense has come to really value the tight end. I think the tight end emergence in this offense has lessened the need for a quarterback run game as much as it happened in the past, which I think will be crucial to understand that now you've got to make sure those big guys are covered. And they're excited about that room a lot. They got a lot of really nice young players in there. They're kind of waiting to see who emerges as the third guy, since Swanson and Oakley are going to be the 1 and 2. Coach said they want 4 there. So I think that's interesting. And Lincoln Cure's hovering out there as a possible addition to the room next year. So it's really, really amazing how much the depth has built up.
I mean, at what point are you still a tight end if you're catching a ton of passes?
Yeah,
like Travis Kelce, for example.
Ben Sinnott was lineup and receiver quite
right. Like, are these guys really tight ends if they are not, in a 3-point stance or on the line? It's if they're lining up a receiver, I think it's a little disingenuous to count those as passing yards to a tight end. But I mean, I think the answer to this question is just how do they line up? Are they putting 2 tight ends on the field and lining them up in receiver or slot positions? I think it's possible.
Fullback.
Fullback. You could put 3 or 4 guys on the field and call them all tight ends and everybody's happy, I guess. But I don't think that you'll see 2 500-yard receiving tight ends, because I think that, there's clear 1 and 2s there, but I think that there's going to be such a rotation of, feed the guy that's hot. I think there's going to be some games where maybe Will Swanson goes off, has a ton of yards. There might be another game where it's Garrett Oakley's turn. So I don't know if that's, if you add up the tight end yards and divide it by 500, I think you'll get to above 2, but I don't know if it's going to be distributed in the way that this question presents.
The way they use their tight ends, truly an H-back. And I know that replacing what Ben Sinnott brought downfield is going to be difficult. I think Oakley can. I've seen him have a few drops, though, that, that Sinnott wasn't really known for. He had a few himself, but he was pretty steady. But what Ben Sinnott did in the backfield, when he lined up as a fullback and blocked, he wasn't window dressing. He was nailing people. And if they can't get one of these tight ends to be as effective as a fullback, that will be damaging to the offense. That's another thing. We're just going to see how it plays out.
Gills, anything?
I agree.
Thank you.
Gills agrees.
I'm here to make the boss happy.
Oh, that's
agree with him.
Yes.
I agree with
So you
both
don't-
of you guys.
So you don't get fined.
Yes.
I'm here.
The fines are adding up for disagreeing.
I'm here for good looks. That's about it.
Especially when you're blurry. You are
Yeah.
very attractive when you're blurry.
This is the last scheduled question we
Short
have
one
here.
this week,
Very
yep.
short podcast
All
this
right.
week. Itame BB asks, which is more likely, a 1,000-yard wide receiver or a 1,500-yard running back in 2024?
Probably 1,000 receiver. I mean,
Really?
Yeah.
I think they're both no's.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But more likely, I think it'll be the receiver. And here's why. I know DJ Giddens will get a lot of the carries, but he has a legitimate running threat next to him in the backfield in the quarterback, Avery Johnson. And since Avery can't catch his own passes, someone will be getting those yards, and it won't be Avery. I mean, he'll get the passing yards, but not the receiving yards. So if I had to pick one, it'd be receiver based on that. If I could, combine the two back there, Johnson and Giddens, they're going to easily surpass that, I would think. I would hope.
Yeah, I think it's probably wide receiver is probably the answer to this, because I just think DJ Giddens, expecting him to run on average more than 110 yards a game, 120 yards a game. I mean, it's a lot of rushing yards when you have Avery Johnson next to you, who's going to take up a lot of the rushing yards.
And maybe
So-
Avery's presence will make life a lot easier for
Yeah.
Giddens.
And maybe that does and helps him get some more yards. But, I think that K-State has been long overdue for a wide receiver to get hot and become the hot hand and get a lot of these yards. I don't know who it's going to be. That's probably a problem for answering this question. But I think that Avery is capable of developing a connection, and we'll see a true wide receiver one emerge pretty quickly. So if I had to guess, I'd go 1,000-yard receiver.
And I would guess Brown. Those two have a connection, have an understanding of how they work together. They've been doing it since they showed up, and Jace is incredibly reliable, both in catching the ball and getting open.
Yeah.
Gills, what's your
I
guess?
agree. I don't want to play devil's advocate. I love Jace Brown. I really do. I think he's going to be awesome. I already think that the connection doesn't have to be made. It's already there between him and Avery Johnson. However, I trust DJ Giddens to do his stuff on the ground more than any of those wide receivers.
True.
Last year, Trayshawn Ward and DJ Giddens didn't necessarily switch off games where it was their game, but they kind of did, right? There were a few games like the UCF game. DJ Giddens showed that he can, his ceiling is really high, and he can be a guy to go out and get you a lot of carries and a lot of yards in a game. And so is that sustainable for a full year? I mean, maybe Avery Johnson helps him out with that, right? Now, we'll see what Jackson does with alongside him in the backfield as well. But, maybe he can bounce off Avery Johnson in that run game. And there's not going to be much on his shoulders, right? So I just trust DJ Giddens more than I trust any of those wide receivers. That's not a knock on them. I think there's potential in a number of guys at that position, but give me the running back here, DJ Giddens. I think he's got a chance to do that. When you do crunch the numbers, it might seem far-fetched, but depending on how many times you can get the rock, it may not seem so far-fetched.
He said the rock. I like it.
The rock.
The rock. That's it?
I can find one. You want?
Yeah, let's go find another
I got a
question.
question
Here
here.
we go.
It's
Bonus
about
round.
us. This one's about us. This is the first question was asked in the thread. What does a typical Wednesday look like at GPC for each of you this time of year? How does it differ from a Wednesday during football or basketball season when there's plenty of media opportunities to go to?
This spring it's been interesting because we've had football press conferences on Wednesday, which they're normally on Tuesday, but we have a practice availability every Tuesday morning at 8:10.
This is the most practice we've gotten to watch in one.
See, I thought this week was the last week,
season.
but Lackey said no. Next week we got another one. We got two more press conferences. The final one will be on Tuesday with Coach Kleiman. Next week it's with Matt Wells and offensive players. I think Avery will be there. Wednesdays are different for me because those press conferences is overlapped with the Big 12 Insiders that starts at 1 as the press conferences do. So I'm not around on Wednesday. Brian Hanley handles that. But then I come back. Honestly, I usually rest a little bit and then do a hit on WIBW. The Royals disrupted it this week. And I didn't
have to do it.
And then we kind of show up and start around 5. This week it was around 5:30, 5:25.
It's never on time. Okay.
It's never on time,
Never
but
on
we had some serious technical issues. I had the second computer that runs Zach's camera just wouldn't restart. It crashed and wouldn't restart, and we had to boot it and get it going, and it was a mess.
Yeah. Football season's very scripted.
Football season's wonderful.
It's
great. Very busy. I mean, you're doing something every day, and this year I'm going to have the Big 12 insiders to worry about. Every day's laid out, but you know what you're going to do. You know what you have to do on a daily basis, and you just kind of put your head down and get through the season because you literally don't have a day off. I mean, you just work through the whole week. So we do try to take more time this time of year, and certainly over the summer we do. But mostly I sit. Mostly I sit right here.
The people of Aggieville need their margaritas and tacos on every single day of the week, including Wednesday. So that's what Gills's looks like, regardless of the season.
Yes. Well, not Mondays. I can't have them on Mondays.
Not on Mondays. Yep. No, unless KU's in town on Big Monday, then they'll open up.
But they don't tell anyone.
Speaking of Aggieville, there's another question from
Here we go.
Don't Touch My Willie. Will GPC be sending an embedded reporter to the Aggieville Showdown in Aggieville this weekend? It is a cattle show. I guess, do they parade the cattle through Aggieville?
I think they are doing now.
Is that what they're doing?
Through Aggieville.
Gills, will you be there?
I will be there. I'm not going to specify why I'll be there, but I'll be there in Aggieville for maybe just because I live in Aggieville pretty much.
He likes cattle.
And that's, luxurious apartments.
I can see the old Aggieville office outside of my window.
Really?
Not actually. No.
That didn't make any logistical sense to me. I was just baffled by that. I literally go to Aggieville about once every 3 weeks. And usually it's to see this clown in the middle working. Becky and I go down and eat. I went to Tanner's and had a enjoyable beverage or two and watch some NCAA basketball.
Well, it wasn't enjoyable when you texted me the next day, though.
No, it was not. As someone who hardly drinks anymore,
sounds like a retirement. I think
I'm pretty close, getting pretty close to retiring. And I apologize to all the liquor and beer sales around town for plummeting. There was a bar that when I moved back to Salina in the 80s, a bar opened up downtown called Shooters. It was an awesome bar. And then when we moved out of Salina and came to Manhattan in 98, Shooters closed the next week. It literally was there the entire span that I was there for about 10 years. And then it went out of business. And I take credit. They needed an extra bar when Fitz showed up. And then, that's it for the podcast. That's it. We appreciate you tuning in. We're dropping these at midnight now on YouTube with the premiere. So hopefully you can enjoy it that way if you're a night owl. If not, it's going to be available for you the next day. And it's also available at midnight on our podcast platforms all across, whatever one you use. And then we put it up on the site on the following day. I think we've been putting it up at midnight though, haven't we? Or 7 a.m. We'll see.
Yeah.
We got no rules. We make the rules. We can just do whatever we want. Like just end the podcast. Like right now, I'm going to end the podcast. Gills, you were outstanding in the second half. Thank you so much. Your blurriness was awesome.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.